What's going on? Today I'm making this United States baseball park map with brass coins to illustrate where my wife and I have gone on our many trips across the country to check out baseball parks before we kick the bucket, I guess. Sorry, that's kind of dark. But anyway, we want to go to every single Major League Baseball park in the country. And so this map represents every park we've gone to so far, as well as the date that we went to that park. So we have a long way to go here, obviously, but this is a fun way to illustrate where we've been and have it on the wall and make kind of a neat memory board slash goal chart for what we want to do in the future. If you want to see how this is made with the Shaper Origin, check it out. I'll go through the whole build right now. So one of the key things to this build will be these little coins. They are brass and they're about 1.6 inches in diameter. But what I need to figure out is a hole that will allow these to sit in there snugly, but not too snugly that I can't pull them out, and not too loose that they're just falling out all the time. So I need to test just a couple different hole sizes. I'll probably go from like 1.57 up to 1.61, somewhere in that kind of range, and just kind of see what fits these the best so that you can still have them relatively vertical without falling out. So we'll see what happens here. So I started with a scrap piece of 1/2-inch ply because that's what I would be ultimately making the whole board out of, along with the inserts, which is what I'm measuring out right here. And if you've used the Shaper Origin or you've watched these videos, you know a lot of it involves double-sided tape just to secure it before you use the plate, and you can route out whatever holes or whatever shapes you have using that Shaper plate so it's nice and consistent. I thought it would be helpful to see what it looks like when you actually are working in Shaper Studio to create the whole design. And really just here I'm showing how you can resize really easily the hole based on the width, then now that that's changed, and then also the depth, and choosing the router bit, which is a 1/4-inch bit, which will hog out that space really nicely. This is 1/2-inch black walnut plywood, and I'm ripping it down to a sheet that's about 34 by 22. The actual design, I think, is 33 by 21, so I'm just giving an inch on either side so that when I build the frame, it's able to overlap that side by about 1/2 inch all the way around. Then I can take it over and actually start routing out the design. And after applying some more double-sided tape, you can give it a nice massage just to make sure it's fully locked on the table. You don't want it to move at all, because if it moves, then obviously you have a lot of problems when you're using a router. And here I'm using some Shaper tape, and I'm extending the work area toward the top. Really, with the Shaper Origin, I used to originally put too much tape toward the bottom, and you're really just needing tape toward the top so that it knows where to go. And then this time lapse just kind of shows really the process. It didn't take too long to actually cut this out. The longest part and most tedious part really was cutting out 30 circles for all the MLB teams. Okay, so now that I finished that map of everything that you saw that little time lapse for, I need to put the coins in here so I can route out the different MLB logos and then the date that we visited that stadium. So to get the MLB logos, again, I put them into the Shaper software. I got those on SVG files that I bought off Etsy. If you're going to sell something like this, there's a lot of issues there with copyright violation, all that kind of stuff. This is just for us in our house, so I'm not worried about that kind of like copyright violation or anything because I'm not selling it. But again, you can figure that out. I'm gonna use Shaper plate here, and I'm actually gonna use the piece that I used to size the hole to keep the piece centered. What I found when I tried to do it on the Shaper workstation is that this piece just moved ever so slightly, and there was some challenges with it being level perfectly, and that matters a lot with engraving. So with the shaper plate and with this taped down, this should be a really good surface to engrave that. And just for a quick overview of how you get the SVG files into Shaper Studio, it's really easy. There's just kind of one click on Shaper Studio that imports it. Make sure it's an SVG file, and they vary in quality, so just make sure the person has good reviews if you get it from Etsy. And then basically you just want to make sure that when you engrave it, that you set it on engraving and cutting on the line. And then I set my bit depth to 0.01 inches. The default is 0.02, and I found that that was trying to dig too much into the brass. So as much as that might help, you can give it a shot. I would do a test coin first just to see if your engraving is looking exactly how you want it. Once I had it dialed into 0.01, it worked really well. For the frame, I used a piece of 5/4 inch walnut that was 6 inches wide, and that way I could have approximately 1 1/4 inch piece by 1 1/4 inch piece edges that I could put around for a frame to make the map look a little bit nicer, have it stand out. And obviously this is something we're going to put in our house, so you want it to look quality as it sits there. To place it and embed it around the map, I needed to rip out a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch rabbet along just one edge. A nice trick that's not totally necessary, but I use a piece of chalk to mark the edge that I want to make sure I rip so I don't accidentally rip the wrong edge. I find that as long as you cut your miters after you've ripped down this edge, it really doesn't become as much of an issue unless you have some kind of really odd dimensions that could throw off your frame. But when it's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch rabbet, it's really not as big a deal. And if you mess up and it doesn't quite cut all the way through, you can use a chisel just to clean that up. I tend to like to mark my miters as I go, partially because math and I don't always get along, but also because I like to sneak up on that frame to make sure that it matches really well. And I feel that by sneaking up on it, I'm not over stressing the math involved and maybe miscalculating something. Once I've taken it off of the saw, I can just place it around the frame. And again, it's 1/2 inch plywood, so that 1/2 inch rabbet works perfectly well. And then add some glue and some pin nails, and it really secures pretty quickly to the overall frame before I can apply finish and be really done with it. So here it is, our baseball stadium tour map made with the Shaper Origin. I'm really happy with what it looks like, how it turned out. how it will help to display the really fun journey we've been on every single year. As long as you have what you need, including the coins, it's about a half-day project, so really not that big a deal. I just now need to figure out where to put it in the house. Thanks for watching. If you like more of this content, please subscribe, like, share, all that stuff, and we'll see you next time.